Troubling allegations. A former NBC correspondent accuses Tom Brokaw of making unwanted advances toward her 2 decades ago.
That was the Today Show report. Linda Vester, a former NBC correspondent, is making gripping allegations of sexual misconduct against Tom Brokaw. Allegations that the veteran anchor strongly denies. In interviews with Variety and The Washington Post, Vester says that in the 1990s, Brokaw groped her and then on 2 separate occasions in 2 different cities got physical with her.
I grabbed the throw pillow and I'm like this to show, with all the body language I can muster, that I'm terrified, I don't want him here, I'm not interested. Reached behind my head and tried to force me to kiss him. I pulled back with all the strength I could muster and stood up. And I said, Tom, I do not want to do this with you.
Joining us now in New York, Marisa Guthrie, TV editor for The Hollywood Reporter. And Marisa, when you look at that very emotional 13-minute video interview by Linda Vester, who later hosted a show at Fox News, doesn't NBC have a major problem on its hands?
It's very detailed, it's very graphic, it's very specific, and the allegations were substantiated by friends and by journal entries. Yeah, she paints a very troubling picture.
Right.
Absolutely.
At the same time, I want to be fair to Tom Brokaw here. You obtained a letter at The Hollywood Reporter that the former anchor had written to some friends and colleagues at 4 in the morning, apparently. And here's some of it. We'll put it on the screen. I was ambushed and perp-walked across the pages of The Washington Post and Variety as an avatar of male misogyny, taken to the guillotine, stripped of any honor and achievement I had earned. I am angry, hurt, and unmoored from what I thought would be the final passage of my life and career. She has unleashed a torrent of unsubstantiated criticism and attacks on me. Brokaw obviously is entitled to defend himself, but not really any conciliatory language in that note.
No, he really tore her down in that letter. And yes, he is entitled to defend himself. This is an allegation from more than 20 years ago. There is a second anonymous allegation also from around the same time period that was in the Washington Post story.
Right, a woman who's not named, yes.
A woman who's not named. I think what the letter represents is somebody desperately afraid that they're going to lose their legacy. But what it also represents, I think, is this kind of old school grandiosity that, you know, all the good things you've done in your life and all the accomplishments, and Tom has both, obviously,
yeah,
negates the handful of stupid things that you did. I mean, why are you in the hotel room of a 28-year-old correspondent? So I think that's what a lot of people are grappling with right now.
Now, you know, I covered Tom Brokaw for a long time. He had an amazing journalistic career, but you can't completely whitewash this. I know that 60-plus women have signed a letter of support for Brokaw, including Andrea Mitchell and Rachel Maddow and others. But let me just play one more soundbite from Linda Vester. You can respond on the other side.
I was deeply traumatized by being groped and assaulted by Tom Brokaw. I was silenced. And there was nothing I could do to seek recourse, because to have done so at NBC would have been the end of my career. Full stop.
People say, why is she doing this now? I mean, she's not suing, she's not asking for money, and NBC doesn't have an outside investigation of this or Matt Lauer or any of this. They're using an in-house executive.
Right, they're using Kim Harris, who's the general counsel at NBC Universal, so in corporate. And that's been a criticism, that they have not hired an outside investigator. Other networks have not. I know, obviously, Fox News did with Roger Ailes. So, yeah, they are opening themselves up to criticism by not hiring an outside investigator.
Yeah, let me just jump in here because we're short on time. That Washington Post story also talked about other allegations against Matt Lauer, of course, was fired about 5 months ago. Ann Curry went on the record saying she had told executives about a woman who claimed she was being harassed by Lauer. And Lauer issued a statement saying many false stories about him. I acted inappropriately as a husband, father, and principal at NBC, but any allegations, says Matt Lauer, of coercive, aggressive, or abusive actions are false. Quick thought on that.
Well, I think that, you know, a lot of this is the man interpreting it differently than the woman, because it has obviously a different effect on the woman when she's trying to fend off somebody who's in a position of power over her. So I think, you know, a lot of I think it's good that we're having this conversation, and that's why I think the letter that all the women signed is an interesting inflection point, because everybody's been terrified to talk about this.
Well, I think that's
and we
a
need
really
to talk about it.
I totally agree with that part.
Yeah.
Marisa Guthrie, thanks.